Welcome to East Wargaming. We're here today with another battle report. This time we are testing out the latest Zone Mortalis rules that were just released in the Cthonia campaign book. With me today again is Jason.
Hello everybody, sorry I got a busted wing. I had a little bit of surgery recently, but we wanted to bring you some content, so very happy to do the Zone Mortalis mission today.
So today what we're doing is we're playing 1750 points of Zone Mortalis. I'll be running the Loyalist Emperor's Children. And Jason?
I have Traitor Night Lords. Sneaky, sneaky.
We rolled off on camera already. We're playing the Stratagem Assault mission for Zone Mortalis in the latest there. So it's the last one of the 3 new ones. Defenders are going to be the Night Lords, and attackers are going to be the Emperor's Children. We're happy to test these new rules out to see how they go. Excited as well. It's nice to see some love coming to Horus Heresy. Big new rule set, big new rule book. Some pros and cons online, but we'll see how it does in a real game.
See you soon. For today's game, we have 1,750 points of Traitor Night Lords in a Zone Mortalis assault force running the Terror Assault Rite of War. In the HQ choice, we have a Praetor in Cataphracti Terminator armor. Never mind the fact that he is in Tartarus, we're using him as Cataphracti for today's game. He is armed as shown with a Volkite charger, as well as a Paragon blade. And for his Warlord trait, he has the Traitor-only Warmonger Warlord trait. With him is a 5-man command squad. 2 are armed with Lightning Claws. 2 are armed with Power Fists and Combi Bolters. And for the standard, he is armed with the model that's using a Chain Fist, but it's going to be a count as a Power Axe. In Elites, we have a single Contemptor choice. He's armed with a Gravis Power Fist with built-in Grav Gun, and it carries Assault Cannon. He's also been given the Prey Vision in order to be able to see at night. For troops, the first 2 troop choices are identical, 10-man Terror Squads. 9 are equipped with Volkites. The Sergeant has Volkite, a Chain Glaive, and is in Artificer armor. Both of these units have been given the Prey Sight upgrade. For the 3rd troop choice, we have a unit of Raptors. This Raptor unit is 11 strong. 5 are armed with Chain Glaives. 5 are armed with Chain Swords and Bolt Pistols. The Headsman has a Headsman's Axe and Artificer armor. And again, the Apothecary is accompanying them as well. And for the final troop choice, we have a 10-man Tactical Squad, completely stocked with the exception of a Power Sword and Artificer armor on the Sergeant. Together, that represents 1,750 points of Traitor Night Lords.
For my 1750 points of Loyalist Emperor's Children today, I have a Praetor leading the pack, upgraded with a Paragon Blade and Thunderhammer. My apologies for no Thunderhammer on this model. The correct model was MIA. His retinue is a 5-man Phoenix Terminator squad. For my first Elite's choice, I have a 10-man Palatine Blade squad. The Sergeant is upgraded with a Phoenix Spear, as are 4 of the other Palatine Blades. The remaining 5 Palatine Blades are upgraded with Phoenix Rapiers. I also have a 5-man Destroyer squad. The Sergeant is upgraded with Artificer armor and a Phoenix Rapier. My final Elite choice is taken up by a Contemptor Dreadnought. This one here has 2 Gravis Power Fists with inbuilt Grav Guns. In my troop slots, I have 2 identical 15-man tactical squads. The Sergeant of each is upgraded with Artificer armor and Power Fist, and each unit also has a Vexilla as an upgrade. Rounding off my force, I have a 10-man Plasma squad. The only upgrade here is the Sergeant has some Artificer armor. That rounds up 1750 points of Emperor's Children Loyalist Zone Mortalis. Here's the battlefield for today. So the defenders are on the far side, defending their 24-inch deployment zone. In front of them, they've got several sets of double doors the Night Lords are protecting. We've kept it pretty open here on the wings that are identical, and then the deployment zone for the Emperor's Children.
Night Lord's deployment summary. We did have alternating deployment in this particular mission, but we went ahead and deployed everything so that we could show you how it ended up. On my right flank, I spent a point on a Terror Squad. Now this is a troop's choice in the Terror Assault Rite of War, so it only cost me 1 point to deploy it. In the middle, I've got a unit of Night Raptors, also troops under this Rite of War, and another point. Backing them up is a Contemptor from the Elite slot, which cost me 2 points to deploy. And then finally on my left flank, I've got another Terror Squad in the troops choice, so I spent a total of 5 deployment points to get all 4 of these units on the table. What I left off the table in case of any Emperor's Children shenanigans is a scoring unit of a tactical squad and my HQ with his command squad retinue. I wanted to be able to keep both of these scoring units in reserves just in case anything comes up on my side or in my back.
Emperor's Children deployment. So we only have 6 reinforcement points to spend here, limiting what we can do. We started off with a 5-man Phoenix Terminator squad with the HQ, the Praetor there. Then we also spent 1 point to get the 10-man Plasma squad. Finally, to spend our 5 points total, we have a 10-man Palatine Blade squad. 5 of Rapiers and 5 have Phoenix Spears. In reserve, because we didn't have enough points, we have a Contemptor, a Destroyer squad, and then 2 15-man tactical squads. Emperor's Children turn 1 movement phase. So before the movement started, Jason used Lockdown Protocol, as he's the defender in this mission, and locked 3 of the doors. He locked the main door in the center in front of my Plasma squad, and he also locked both of the side doors in front of his 2 Terror squads there. Now, for my movement, there was not much I could do. I simply ran my Phoenix Terminators up the flank. I repositioned the Plasma squad to get a shot at the door because we do have to destroy it now and risk some overheat. And my Palatine Blades did the same thing as the Phoenix Terminators and ran up the opposite flank. Shooting phase summary. Summary really is what it is because the Plasma squad decided not to rapid fire because they weren't going to risk taking any overhits. They managed to hit with 7 of their shots, needing 3s to glance the door, but as you can see, we had an amazing roll and only managed to score 1 whole point.
Turn 1 movement summary for the Night Lords. Well, because of the Emperor's Children failing to destroy that door in front of them, it changed my plans a little bit. So the Contemptor decided not to actually come out and shoot at the potentially exposed Plasma. Instead, he ran over to this little single door here because the double door is actually locked. So that forces the Phoenix Terminators to only be able to go through this particular opening if they want to get into my deployment zone. To make space for the Contemptor and to also perhaps pay attention to any EC shenanigans, the Terror Squad backed up, giving them an opportunity to look at either my back or my flank if necessary. Coming around to my left side, the other Terror Squad did exactly the same thing, backing up and allowing space for the Night Raptors to move over to this single door. Now I have opened that door because I want the ability to actually move through it and potentially charge in the next turn depending on what the Emperor's Children do. So that summarizes turn 1 movement for the Night Lords.
Emperor's Children turn 2 movement phase. Well, there's really not much I could do, so I ran the Palatine Blades up the side here. We're expecting a charge, but we have some Emperor's Children shenanigans now that advanced reactions are available in Zone Mortalis. The Plasma Squad moved up the middle running. They chose to ignore the door since the Contemptor has gone in a different direction. They are going hunting for him. The Phoenix Terminators don't really have much that can deal with a Contemptor, So they're just preparing for a countercharge or see how the game progresses.
Turn to movement summary for the Cowardly Night Lords. So we had to do a little bit of shuffling around and strategic thinking. I used one of my reinforcement points at the very beginning of the turn to actually try to take control of the doors. I was successful and I rolled a 5, immediately locking all of the doors throughout the entire complex. Now over here there was one EC plasma gunner that was actually in the doorway, and I attempted to shut the door on him. It's a strength 8 hit with no saves allowed of any kind. I only needed to roll anything but a 1. And as you can see, I didn't kill anybody, unfortunately, so we didn't get to use that mechanic, which is a shame. So continuing my use of reinforcement points, I spent 4, my remaining 4, to actually bring on my HQ to continue to protect my rear. I also moved all of my terror squads, both sides, spreading them out through my zone to protect my back edge, because I know that Rich was going to try and bring something out behind me. Coming over here to the Contemptor, he didn't actually do anything at all once again, because now all the doors are locked and he successfully can block these single doors from the Phoenix Terminators, which may be trying to come in, or I can react whatever direction I want to go. And then finally the last unit, which was the Night Raptors, decided to go ahead and risk it, come through the double doorway and position themselves for a charge on the Emperor's Children. Now I know that the Emperor's Children have an advanced reaction which could be pretty deadly, but we're going to go ahead and take the risk for it because I'd really like to get these guys in combat with them and slow them down. Turn 2, shooting and assault summary for the Night Lords. There actually wasn't any shooting because I was afraid if I shot at my intended target, the Palatine Blades, they would have ran off. So we didn't do any shooting, and we did go into the assault phase. I declared a charge for my Night Raptors to go into the Palatine Blades. Rich activated his advanced reaction, which basically allows the Emperor's Children to do a counter assault roll-off. Thankfully, the Night Raptors managed to actually outroll the Emperor's Children, successfully getting off the charge. Well, once we get in there, then Rich pulls more EC shenanigans and activates a perfect guard, which then allows him to make it harder for me to hit him with my mountain of attacks. So instead of hitting on 4s, I'm now hitting on 5s. We issue a challenge. The Night Lord Sergeant with his headsman axe steps up to the plate, goes against the Emperor's Children Sergeant with a Phoenix Spear, manages to successfully kill him at that strength 8 attack and murderous strike as well, or excuse me, breaching as well. We rolled all the rest of the dice. There was a lot of people at initiative 5 due to spears, due to the Night Lord's rules. We had chain glaives, we had chain swords. The net result of all the combat was I lost 4 Night Raptors due to murderous strike from the Emperor's Children weapons, which were causing a lot of murderous strikes. I managed to kill off 2 more spears, and we ended up losing by 3. And after we rolled, the Night Lords decided to flee a whopping 13 inches. They'll be coming back this direction. And unfortunately, that's going to actually trigger a blind panic check on this terror squad right here, blocking my table edge. Thankfully, I managed to actually pass the roll. They didn't flee, but after we move the Night Raptors, they will actually be clumped up here, and then we will move on to turn 3 for the Emperor's Children.
Emperor's Children turn 3 movement phase. So I started this phase with 5 reinforcement points. I spent 1 point to try and seize the doors, and I managed to seize them. So I opened a few to give me some better access to a few things there. And then I spent 3 more points to bring my destroyers in from the flank here to hopefully cause a bit of chaos. The Palatine Blades moved up, trying to follow the Night Raptors that they fled the last turn. We'll see if we can finish off our job, even though we're missing a sergeant. And then the Palatine Blades on the other side, sorry, the Phoenix Terminators on the other side came around. They decided we need to do something. They opened the door. They did take some return fire, some suppressing fire from the Contemptor, and did take a wound on a rending 6 from the Kerry's autocannon. Assault cannon. Turn 3 shooting phase. So the only shooting we had was the plasma squad. They wanted to take some pot shots at the terror squad there. The terror squad actually displaced. So as you can see, they displaced towards the open doorway. I think the goal is to try and block a double charge, which is probably a bit wise. We had 2 gets hot, one on the sergeant and one on the normal guy. Both were passed, and we caused 3 more wounds to this terror squad. So they do have to take a break check. Turn 3 assault for the Emperor's Children. The Palatine Blades tried to valiantly charge after the Night Raptors. They rallied successfully on their morale check, but we needed a 7-inch roll and we rolled a measly 5. So we crept forward. They were scared by all that afterwash from the jump packs. The Destroyer Squad was more successful. They charged in, and the Night Lords braced and successfully braced. During the combat, the Night Lords lost 3 guys, and the Emperor's Children lost 1 destroyer in reply. Since there was a brace, there was no break check required. We just piled in. So not a bad turn.
Turn 3 movement summary for the Night Lords. So we continued our game of musical doors. The Night Lords once again used one of their reinforcement points to take control of the doors. We managed to actually control the doors once again. We've shut and locked everything over on this side, playing peekaboo with the Phoenix Terminators, but there was just a lot of bad options there with all that instant death and murderous strike over there. We came over here, and what's more interesting is these guys, the Palatine Blades, were actually in the open doorway. So once again, we slammed the door shut. We did a strength 8 hit on the unit, and we did successfully kill one of the Palatine Blades crunch with the door itself. We did move up a little bit. The Terminators here are positioning themselves to take a charge on the Palatine Blades, and we once again spaced out the Terror Squad back here, continuing to protect our back line. I did not bring on my last Tactical Squad, and I'm doing that on purpose because the Night Lords have the last turn, so that could potentially actually save the game for me. So we'll come back in just a moment with shooting and combat. Turn 3 assault phase for the Night Lords. We start with the Terror Squad versus the Destroyers. After all of the rolls, we managed to sneak through a couple wounds, including on the Sergeant and 1 regular Destroyer, killing them. I suffered no wounds in return. Now, the Destroyers are stubborn, and they passed their leadership on a 7, exactly what they needed to roll, so we're just still fighting there. More interestingly, we have the Command Squad with the Praetor managed to successfully pass their charge. They got into combat after all of the rolls. We successfully wiped out every single member of the Palatine Blades, taking 1 wound in return, and then we'll have a consolidation after that. And yeah, it was a pretty good turn for the Night Lords, but we'll have to see what last tricks the Emperor's Children have up their sleeves.
Emperor's Children turn 4. I think we played this a bit too conservatively and left it a bit too late, but I tried to seize the doors, and I didn't, so I wasted one of my reinforcement points on a roll of a 2. My 2 remaining reinforcement points, I brought in my Tactical Squad from the side here, 15 man. They're having to come in. It's not the most ideal situation. My Plasma Squad moved up because they have to start doing something. They're going to shoot the doors to try and give some options, at least make the Night Lords consider some things in the last couple turns. And the Phoenix Terminators did the same thing. Turn 4 shooting phase. The Plasma Squad decided to take some shots and destroy the door. They managed to do this, but lost a guy in return. His plasma weapon got hot. The Tactical Squad in the corner decided to shoot at the Night Raptors. They managed to score 7 wounds, and they were all tanked by the Sergeant. So no wounds there. We'll move on to the very, very short assault. Assault phase, and it wasn't very exciting. We had the Praetor come and smash the door in to open it up. He got fed up with all these closed doors and open door shenanigans. My lone destroyer managed to cause no wounds because he didn't manage to hit or wound anything, and he died to the glaive from the Sergeant in return. They consolidated a bit, and now we'll move on to turn 4 for the Night Lords.
Turn 4 movement summary for the Night Lords. I used my reinforcement points. I didn't try to take control of any of the doors. There's no reason at this point. I did bring in my last remaining tac squad over here, conveniently forgetting that Interceptor is allowed under the new Zone Mortalis rules because it is considered an advanced reaction. So we ate Interceptor fire from the Emperor's Children Plasma, who managed to kill 4 of my tactical Marines while burning up 1 themselves. Not ideal, but it doesn't trigger a reaction because it happened in as a reaction. I moved up my Terminator Command Squad and Praetor over here because we can't keep letting him blow me away with plasma for the rest of the game, just in case it keeps going. Terror Squad stayed still. The Contemptor moved over here to block the now open door that the Emperor's Children charged into in the last turn. We want to continue to bottle them up. And then this blue parking lot of used blue power armor over here, we had to do some shuffling around between the remaining Terror Squad, the Raptors. I want the Raptors to go in on that tactical squad because they can absolutely blender it. So we'll see what happens with the shooting and the assault in just a moment. Turn 4 shooting for the Night Lords. Starting over here on the right-hand side, we went ahead and decided to shoot with the Contemptor finally into the Phoenix Terminators. They did displace, but I still have line of sight. I dropped down the grav. We didn't do anything with the grav other than creating some difficult and dangerous terrain. However, the carries did manage to get 1 wound off of one of the Terminators, so that was good. The Terror Squad in the back had a couple guys they could actually see with their Volkites. They fired everything they could into the Phoenix Terminators, but there was no result. We didn't do anything over here because we knew that if we shot that plasma, it was just going to displace, and we really want to get at it with our command squad. So everything over here, as much as possible between the TAC squad, the last few remaining members of the Terror Squad that can see, the Night Raptors, they poured all of their various weapon fire here into the Emperor's Children, and we did manage to kill 2 of the Tactical Marines. We'll come back in just a moment with the assault phase. Night Lords turn 4 assault phase. It was a pretty successful one. So the first thing was the Praetor and his command squad retinue went in and did what they do and absolutely murdered those plasma guns. We luckily didn't take any wounds in return, so that was a pretty good result. And then coming over here, the Night Raptors also do what they do, and that's charge into and kill tactical Marines really well with sudden strike. So they managed to actually kill 9 of them before the Emperor's Children even got to swing back. We did lose the Apothecary thanks to the Sergeant, but we ended up running down the last 2 models, and yeah, it was a pretty good assault phase for the Night Lords.
Emperor's Children, turn 5. We had a 2-up on the roll for seeing if there was a turn 5. At the beginning, I used both of my reinforcement points, since I only had 2, to bring in another tech squad on the other side. We're going to see if the emptier side can be a bit more successful, but we do have a door in the way that needs to disappear. The Phoenix Terminators moved through dangerous terrain from the previous round's grav, and they actually lost one of the guys who already had a wound, but everybody else was fine. They moved closer. We don't really have much else on the board, as you can see, so it's going to be a very short round for us. The shooting phase was short for the Emperor's Children in their 5th turn. The tech squad got very angry at the door, rapid firing into it. Since it's only AV10, they managed to cause exactly 6 hull points, so that door is gone. We will move into the assault phase, and there's only really 1 squad to go. Assault phase summary. We charged in because we were so close. The Phoenix Terminators with their spears did nothing, not managing to cause 1 wound but caused 9 hits. And then the Praetor, who actually has a Thunderhammer as well, though not depicted on this particular model, came in and caused 5 hits, 10 wounds, and they were saved with only 4 going through, so 3 wounds remaining on this Contemptor. He attacked back and managed to only cause 1 brutal 3.
Turn 5 movement for the Night Lords. We were finally able to bring our Terror Squad off the back line now that we know nothing's going to come behind us. Moving over here in an attempt to get some shots onto that TAC squad. Contemptor still locked in combat with the Phoenix Spears. We've brought the command squad this direction and basically in a blocking motion. We brought up the Terror Squad, and we also brought up the Raptors. And then we castled this unit of tacticals over here who are still in my deployment zone, because basically the whole point is just to protect them. So everything else moves forward to sacrifice themselves in the name of Conrad Kurz, and we'll see what happens with the shooting and assault in just a moment. Night Lords turn 5 shooting. So the Terror Squad went ahead and took the shots over here at the TAC squad from the Emperor's Children. They did displace, trying to get some of their number out of line of sight, but unfortunately everybody was able to shoot. The combination of shots and deflagrate managed to kill 6 of the TAC Marines, including the Sergeant who was trying to tank. Unfortunately, he failed. The two Terminators, the Cataphracti Terminators over here that could actually see and shoot, fired their combi bolters and completely did absolutely nothing to the tack squad. The tack squad, even with the fear-causing Night Lords nearby, passed their morale check, so they did not flee or otherwise react, and we will move into the assault phase in just a moment. Turn 5 assault for the Night Lords. We start with the Contemptor, who you can see what happened to him. He managed to sneak through one hit, and he did kill one of the Phoenix Terminators. The Phoenix Terminators and the Praetor killed him in return. When he exploded, he did happen to take down another Phoenix Terminator with him in the ensuing explosion. But moving over to the combat that really mattered, because it was the last scoring unit for the Emperor's Children, the Night Lord's Terror Squad, after firing their Volkites, came in, successfully pulled off the charge. The Emperor's Children tried to brace, and unfortunately they were not successful. We came in, and you can see the net result of a bunch of chain swords and the chain glaive from the sergeant coming in and totally wiping out that squad, with the exception of the two guys that were left, who then tried to run and were cut down as they fled. So because that was the last scoring unit for the Emperor's Children, and they're not going to be able to actually get me out of the zone, we've decided to call it at the end of turn 5.
Oh, well, what a game there. Something different.
Yeah, it was an interesting game, to say the least, as I think you'll hear from us in just a moment. There was definitely some things that were interesting and some things that were not so interesting, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, mixed feelings. I was very excited with the fact that we got some new rules from Zone Mortalis. It's nice to have a rule set outside of a White Dwarf for things. I'm of honestly mixed opinions. This is, of course, our first game for Zone Mortalis. The new rules for the reinforcements are something I'm very much on the fence about in terms of how they come in and just the whole deployment and points. Mainly because the games are suggested to be larger. And in the past, we've been playing a lot smaller Zone Mortalis games because the boards have been 3x3. Just generally covering distance is a problem.
Yep.
They've done a drastic change, moving everything to 4x4. Looks great on film, and we do, luckily for us, have the terrain to do something 4x4. But it does make it a lot more inaccessible to most gamers to try and build a 4x4 Zone Mortalis board.
Yeah, I think that's one point, right? It is going to be very expensive for you to get those 4x4 boards. I think the way that this particular mission was set up, it's so heavily weighted to the defender, right? I start out with extra reinforcement points. I start out with 3 locked doors, which, depending on your table layout, could be absolutely brutal. I have the advantage of kind of seeing what the attacker is going to do if he goes first, which actually I was happy not to go first, because I can see exactly what you're going to do in terms of reinforcement, whether they're going to come on from the sides, they're going to come to my rear, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm with you in the sense that I'm very happy that we have new rules. And I think that's a good thing, but I think this mission needs to be tweaked. And if you couldn't tell from our comments, the Night Lords obviously won. And I think it's because, again, of some of the factors that I mentioned. I don't know why this is so heavily weighted to the defenders. I mean, if this is intended to be purely narrative games, then great, that's fine. We know that there's narrative missions and whatnot. But it doesn't look like this is one that is remotely balanced, to be quite honest with you, and it needs some tweaking.
Yeah, I think the Apex missions in the book are more the legendary missions per se, the ones that are tweaked towards the campaign. These are what they call the core missions for the new Zone Mortalis format. And I think they need to be less attacker-defender biased, regardless if it is attacker biased or defender biased. They need to be closer here. New size of the boards maybe threw me off a tiny bit. I'll say this because the distance needed to travel from board edge to board edge, especially in this mission where my goal was to get my scoring units, which I only sadly had 2 of in this game, to the other side, kind of pushed me mentally towards having to outflank them further up the board, which cost more points. And the restrictions of the number of points an attacker gets is something I think needs to change here. The bias towards the defender is, negative, really.
Yeah, I think if the points for reinforcement were different, if it didn't cost as much as it does to bring basically I shut down the whole back end of my deployment zone, right? Because I was worried about you bringing on a unit from the rear, so I was able to completely block the back end, as you'll see in the bat rep. Even if you do outflank, it costs you a lot of points. I have a 2-point advantage There's just so many different ways that I can actually react to you in that game. Now, I think the intent was good. Let me be honest, right? I think that a new mechanic such as reinforcement adds a different wrinkle to it. You got to think about things. I think the changes to reactions, where you can now use advanced reactions and your Legion advanced reaction, is a good change, right? Adds another wrinkle to it. But I don't know why they've weighted this mission so heavily to the Defender, and it makes it too easy. Like, we were actually discussing it during the game that it's quite possible that if I wanted to, I could have made it 90, let's call it 90% impossible for him to win, simply by standing in front of doorways with throwaway units and then locking the doors every single turn that I can, right?
I think that our table deployment for this also wasn't the most ideal for the new mission rules or the just general rules for Zone Mortalis. We've never seen the ability to open and close doors before, and I think we underestimated how vital that would be in this kind of game, especially for a defender who actually just has extra reinforcements points to just spend willy-nilly at controlling the entire set of doors. Again, thematic, the defender should potentially control most of the doors, but I think maybe we had too many and we needed some more open lanes in our layout.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I mean, the mechanic to actually seize control of the doors is on a 3-up. And if you happen to have like a Cortis controller on your HQ, you can make it a 2-up, which means you essentially take control and lock the doors at your leisure every single turn, and I think that's a bit gamey, right? So I agree with you. Either rebalance the points, change the ways that maybe doors work, or in our future games, we're probably not going to have so many doors, right? I think all of it, again, just pros and cons, right? I can see that the good intent was there, but I think we're definitely going to house rule this and change this mission a little bit if we actually play it again in the future. But yes, I do like some of the new stuff. I do think it's a step in the right direction. It just feels like this one wasn't fully polished.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that's our little 2 cents on the mission itself and the new rules, at least at first glance for us at East Wargaming. On to Man of the Match. Who have you chosen for you?
Well, I mean, if I wanted to make a joke out of it, I could say Man of the Match is the doors. I basically seized control of the doors, I think, 4 of the 5 turns.
Yeah.
And was able to just keep closing and locking, or just blocking them with stuff. But actual Man of the Match for me is one of my Terror squads. They stood on the back line. They stopped you from coming in behind me. And then when the time came, they ran in there and absolutely decimated a tactical squad. Well, actually, both of my Terror squads did. So I have to give it to them because they really had some high damage output, I think, and served a useful purpose.
I think I agree with you there. For me, I have taken a slightly different approach from my Man of the Match. This is one of the things, this comes down to the gripe I have with the reinforcement points. My Man of the Match is the man who actually couldn't even come on the board, my Contemptor, since I didn't save up enough reinforcement points to bring him in at any critical moment. I think just in general, a game where you've paid the points for something and it's actually not possible to bring him on, or even if I did bring him on, it would have been completely ineffective, It's
a bad mechanic.
Yeah, it's a bad mechanic. It's a cool idea, honestly, cool idea. I love the idea of this. There maybe just needs to be more points put up there, especially now that we're moving to larger point games. One of the things I do want to highlight for us is when we play these games, we tailor our lists to make them kind of exciting, but we had to really rework our lists here to fit into the points sizes that they're asking for, 1,500 to 2,500 points. We chose 1,750, which is a bit larger than the minimum. But after calculating how many reinforcement points we got at the end of a 5-turn game, maybe a 6-turn game, if you're choosing a large number of troops, so just a large number of units, you can't bring them all on.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I'm running Terror Assault, so I was running basically 4 troop choices. So not only do I get a 2-point, buffer over you, if I wanted to, I could have started with my entire army on the table. Yeah. It doesn't make sense if you really think about it. You want larger armies, yet the reinforcement points are going to stop you from really using the larger army. It's almost as if they want you to play these nothing but elite forces like Pride of the Legion or something like that. So yeah, it's a good idea. It does need some tweaking.
Well, look, in conclusion from us at East Wargaming, we're excited that we have some new content for Heresy. We're excited at the prospect of the book. I think it's going to take us a while longer to really dive into Zone Mortalis and what we like about it and how we may change some house rules for us at Far East Wargaming. But in general, it's nice to play a new system. I do love Zone Mortalis in itself. Larger side was definitely interesting to play, but I think we'll be back to revise some things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it was a good time, pros and cons. We'll definitely learn from this. Very happy to have you here still watching us if you've listened to all of this ranting and raving. But I think that's it for now. You know, get your own games in. Don't be afraid to house rule them if you need to, because we're going to do the same thing. And I think that's it. What else?
No, honestly, that really sums up this game for me. I'm happy to have played, sad to have lost. But from us at Far East Wargaming, for me, Richard, thanks very much for tuning in. Please feel free to like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video.
Yes, keep the comments coming. And as always, happy wargaming.